Let me just shut this window so you don't get car noises as people drive past. How are we doing? How are we doing? So this morning, I thought I would talk to you about a complete tragedy of how I see people using LinkedIn. And it's the people who can't afford to waste time. It's the people who can't afford to waste money actually making this mistake. And I've been on LinkedIn for 10 years and I see more people making this mistake now on LinkedIn. And you might be thinking, Dean, why is it a tragedy? It's because these people can't afford to waste their time. They can't afford to waste their time doing things that don't equal a result. So I thought I'd go live today talking about this because it's such a massive problem. And it might turn into a bit of a rant, but often it's a frustration for me because I see it and then I show people it and they still don't do anything about it. So, what am I talking about? I'm talking about how poorly or how totally unplanned many small business owners approach LinkedIn. They will jump on this platform and or they will sit on their computers this morning and they'll spend an hour creating a post and putting it out and not think about how is that helping me build my business. They're just posting. They've been told, they've been fed a dream that if you post, clients will come to you. And that was true 5 years ago. It's not true today. The only people who say that that's true are people selling something to help you get followers and go viral. So we're in an age where, and I shared the algorithm changes, people are doing this hoping to strike it rich. That's really what it is. Now, I'm not saying you don't post content, and it's not really about the content itself, because even a small business owner with limited time, if they got really focused on a few key things, they probably could make content work. But for the vast majority of people, it's probably not the right thing to be resting. Not probably, it isn't the right thing to do to be sinking all of your effort into a platform or a methodology content where you have zero control over your distribution. Like, if you want to educate people and take people on a buying journey and you want to get people through even if it's a loose funnel, is it really the best method to start investing and sinking that time and energy into a place where you have no control over your distribution? And the tragedy of this bit is that the bits that are the least predictable are the bits where people spend the most effort creating that content. Building an email list, actually building relationships, talking to people, having a plan of how to convert from your email list. That doesn't exist for many small business owners. Doesn't exist. And so what happens is they sink more and more money. And I had a conversation with somebody a couple of days ago, and if somebody messages me on LinkedIn, and they're struggling, I will always chat to them. I will always kind of signpost them because generally I want people to succeed. I want people to win. Of course, I've got something to sell. But I had a conversation with somebody a few days ago, and they're about a month away from having to get a job as a small business owner. About a month away. They don't have any staff, it's just them, but they're about a month away. So if they don't pick up some business in the next month, they're done. They got to get a job. And when I looked at their profile, let me just give you a bit of a backstory. I looked at their profile, so all of this brief came, and of course, then they're asking me, Dean, how do I get a client in a month? And they sell kind of fairly expensive stuff, $3 grand, $4 grand services. So I said to them, and I gave them my 7-day client system. I didn't want any money from them because I don't want money from people who are going broke. So I gave them my 7-day client system and said, go and follow this exactly, literally exactly. Just literally do it exactly. But which is just it's hard to sell a $4,000 thing cold and get it done within a month, get it paid within a month. So I suggested, and I put this in the 7-day client system, sell something for cheap and sell a few of them and then upsell people. It's faster. So I gave them that to get on with. But when I looked through their profile, and they'd been on the ropes, for a little while, it's tough. There's no denying it right now. It is tough out here. The world is tough. Yeah, people are worried about the economy. People are worried about all sorts, and people are holding on to their money. So it's not as easy to get people to buy as it was, even 2 years ago. But as I looked through their profile and looked at what they were doing, I saw they'd been consistently posting, like without fail, 2 or 3 posts a week. You could see they'd put effort into those posts. And I'm like, if you're 3 months away from having to get a job, is that the most important plan and path and activity you should be doing? And it's like, no, it's not. And I'm not against content. I post a lot of content. It sounds hypocritical, me kind of shitting on content, but I post content. I encourage people to post content, but that's not where I rely on for my business. So anyway, I looked and there was all this consistency on the content, and I thought, well, obviously that's taken a lot of their time. And I look at it and go, let's say you spent 25 minutes making those 2 or 3 posts a week. So just over an hour a week, an hour 15 a week, say. You spent an hour and 15 a week on your content, and now you're going, actually, what am I going to do? Makes no sense. I was like, what could you have been using that hour and 15 on? What could you have used that hour and 15 on? And there's a ton of things. Growing a new newsletter, actually converting, talking to prospects. If you had a structured plan for an hour a week, even 2 hours a week if you had to, 3 hours a week, if you had a structured plan of what you were doing, you would have way more success. Because at the end of the day, all your success on LinkedIn is about how many conversations you have with the right people. So if you're sat there with a ticking clock going down, to 3 months, and then you're looking for employment, and that's where you are, why are you not doing the most straightforward way to get a conversation? And that's not pitching, by the way. Most straightforward path to getting conversations. Why would you go this indirect route and put all this effort here and not do anything here? And I asked, have you reached out to anybody on your email list? No, actually, they'd not done an email update to their little list. It was only 200-300 people. They'd not sent anything to their email list in 2 or 3 months. So you're in a situation where all the priority is going to the wrong place. And I'd love to say that this is an isolated incident, and it is in a sense. It's very rare I get people, coming to that cliff edge, reaching out to me, because usually it's kind of too late, and there's so much moral hazard with kind of stepping in to try and help people at that point. So it's very rare you get somebody in that place contacting me, but there's that pattern of behavior I see all the time. People posting content like clockwork, but ignoring an email list. I see them posting content like clockwork and not actually explaining what they do or promoting what they do. And I'll give you the biggie I see a lot. And it's horrific, really, because it's such an easy fix. It's like a couple of hours and it's fixed. You're going to stir up all this attention on LinkedIn and not tell people how you buy? Like, literally, I see people, I look at their profile and go, why have you pinned your most popular posts into your featured section? Why is it hard for me to look at your profile and find out how I can buy something from you? Why is that difficult? Meanwhile, you're posting like clockwork. It makes no sense. And I've had this conversation with somebody recently, or maybe a month ago, and I said to them, why, if I visit your profile and content drives, if you post content, it drives people to your profile. Why would you not want me to know what I could buy from you? I look at the profile, I look in the featured section, doesn't say anything. It's just pinned posts of, I was at this event's dinner and this there. Why would you hide what I can buy from you? Why would you stop me from reading about it? And they went, oh, I can't believe I've done that. It's so obvious now you say it. I checked their profile this morning. It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same. Content's up to date though. Lots of new content. And it's like, it's a tragedy because the people who need the business, the people who, let's be honest, most small business owners don't want to be a salesperson. They don't want to be a salesperson. They'd much rather get inbound leads or have a less friction, they don't want to pitch. And yet the fundamentals that help them get clients without doing the kind of aggressive tactics are not there. So we're posting content, but not communicating how we can help people. We're spending an hour a week on creating that content, but doing nothing to convert our email list. I don't know why we're in this place. I think part of it is a content addiction. I think we are addicted to creating content. If you think about it, if you put out an email and say that you've got some space to work with people in the next 2 or 3 weeks, you might get 1 or 2 people and the majority might say nothing. With content, you put something out and people like it. So content gives you lots of positive reinforcement, even with the miserable impressions. Yeah. So people are defaulting to doing things that actually, one, the vast majority of small business owners cannot put the time and effort into the content at sufficient levels to achieve what they want to achieve. And what I mean by that is they look at these people where they're going viral and they're getting 1,000 likes on their posts. They're seeing those posts of, I made 30K last month from just posting content, which is all bollocks, by the way, just to sell you their stuff. But even if they are, they've amassed a large audience, a large, highly engaged audience. And so what you have is some small business owners going, I want to get like that. I want to do what they're doing. I want the results that they're getting, but then not prepared to put the time in to actually do it. And there was a creator the other day, and it was funny, really. Creator put their worksheet out of how they get clients on LinkedIn. And it was all mentioning content until the very end, where it's like, actually, he's messaging people who engage with him and trying to sell them. So the content itself alone doesn't drive the sales. He thought it was useful to put in that he actually is messaging people who engage to sell his stuff. So even the big creators are messaging behind the scenes. I'm not talking about pitching here. I'm talking about starting conversations with people. But most small business owners don't have the time and energy to do that work. And in that guy's sheet, he said he's spending 2 hours engaging with other people, interacting with other people every single day. So the content piece, the engagement piece. So if that's true, maybe spending an hour on a post per day and 2 hours engaging on a post per day. So that's 3 hours per day, right? That's a lot of work. And it's not the most enjoyable of work, commenting on posts either, especially when you're doing it as a strategy where you don't most of the time feel anything about the post. You're doing it to build relationships or engagement for engagement or whatever it is. So you're doing that for 3 hours a day. So can you do that? Honest, can you do that? Because if you can't do that, that's okay. But don't try and do a half-baked version. If a 20-minute version of their strategy worked, they'd be doing it. There's a reason they're spending 3 hours a day doing it. So if you don't have 3 hours a day, don't try and do a kind of half-baked version of their strategy. Yeah, because it just won't work. And you'll be kind of like frustrated about when's this all going to change, but you're not doing the level of work required to get their result. And I bet you any money, some of these creators that have grown very, very quickly, some of them are in, all sorts of weird groups, and a lot of their engagement isn't real, but the ones who have done the work, right? There's probably more work behind the scenes as well. There's probably at least 30, 40 hours worth of work, a week's worth of work. And they can justify that because a lot of their money, a lot of these creators' money is coming from the back end, not the front end. So in other words, the content that doesn't drive a lot of their revenue because they've got some SaaS platform or some AI tool or some CRM or something like that paying them to post. You may not have thought that's a thing on LinkedIn, but when you see these posts where they're saying, oh, here's some amazing tools and here's how you will notice a hashtag at the bottom that says ad, because they're being paid to actually do that. So they can justify, if I'm making $5,000 this week for this series of posts, they can justify spending 40 hours a week on those posts and the engagement and all that stuff because they've just made $5,000 for doing the posts. So if you're sat here going, Dean, what should I be doing? I've got a little quiz you can do. It's called the 5 Paths quiz. And what it does is, instead of focusing on just posting because you get something out of it, or pitching, which are the two common things, post to get leads or pitch to get leads, I would argue neither are effective for small business owners. I'll take you through this quiz and it will give you basically some questions to answer about your preference, because whatever plan you build for LinkedIn, you have to like it. Otherwise, you just won't do it. So if I said to you, you had to pitch 20 people a day and you hate pitching, even if you know it makes you money, you will avoid doing that activity. You will go to the other activity you enjoy. So finds out your preference, understands your business a little bit more, asks you some questions about you as an individual, and then suggests one of the 5 paths that can be predictable in terms of getting leads and clients. Number 1 is a newsletter or email list. That's the long-term strategy that really does deliver. And it's really good if you're selling any form of expertise or specialist knowledge, or consulting, or you're an accountant, a lawyer, that kind of stuff. It also works really well in kind of technology sectors where there's a lot of complex information. So newsletter and email list is really good. Number 2, live events, both online and offline. Getting people to your live events, because that's an interactive experience. A lot of tech companies do this because they need to be able to talk to decision makers who are very good at evading salespeople, but very good if you're selling specialist knowledge as well, or specialist expertise. So live events. Then we've got the 2 salesy ones. You've got hyper targeted prospecting, one of the most effective ways to outreach on LinkedIn. It's not for people who are not used to sales, but it's very effective. It's the best performing method of anything that you can do on LinkedIn in terms of booking conversations with prospects. Then we got a more relational version of that, social engagement, where you're building relationships. And I hate the phrase, but just having virtual coffees with the right people, exactly the right people. So it's not just random virtual coffees, the equivalence of a virtual coffee with the right people. And if you're on a call and having a conversation with the right person, an opportunity, and we show you how to create an opportunity there. And then you've got content that converts. And this is different from just posting on the feed. There's a strategy behind it, there's a focus behind it, and it's not about getting high views. It's about getting inbound leads, and it's about using content to get leads. They're the kind of 5 that I would bank on for a small business owner. And you'll notice all 5 of them have a plan behind them, because without a plan, you're screwed. You're just making it up. It's all luck. And I feel like a lot of people, when I look at their profiles, they're defaulting to posting without a plan. They're defaulting to using LinkedIn without a plan. And then you look at and you sit down with them on a call and you go, what am I buying from you? And they go, oh, it's not there, is it? I go, and here's a bigger one. What's the problem you solve? That should be, and this is a business lesson here rather than a LinkedIn lesson, but this business lesson, if you don't understand this bit, it will show up on LinkedIn. And if it shows up on LinkedIn, you are screwed. And big companies do this as well, by the way. So it's a business principle. What problem are you solving? Right? What problem are you solving? Not what are you selling? Not what solution are you selling? What problem are you solving? You know, I look at people's profiles and I go, I can't see it. I can't see it. I can't see the problem. What's the problem you're solving? All this content, this solution, what's the problem? Why is that important? People buy solutions to problems. Yeah. And when we're eager to sell our thing, I'm eager to sell my thing. I'm sure you're eager to sell yours. When we're eager to sell our thing, we jump straight to the solution and forget the fundamental principle is people buy solutions to problems. So people are looking for who's talking about my problem. That's interesting to me. I want to know what you're saying about my problem. And yet most of the energy goes on talking about the solution. You know, I said this to somebody yesterday on a call. I said, one of the things, the mistakes people make on social media is if you look at the kind of classic marketing gurus on social media, they're either selling, you know, making money. So it's wealth, health, and relationships. Russell Brunson famously coined that in his book, right? Those 3, right? And if you're selling literally how to become a great lover, or how to get rich, or how to get a 6-pack, your tangible outcome is very, very visible. Like 6-pack, money and Lamborghini, or beautiful partner, right? It can be very, very easy to identify those. And so what happens is you talk about making money and beautiful partners and 6-pack and all that kind of stuff. But in the real world, yeah, outside of that little bubble, actually what prompts people to buy, what prompts people to take action is not just talking about what the future looks like. Because there's a lot of people in the world today who have big dreams, big aspirations. There's lots of people who want to be a millionaire. There's lots of people who want to fix their mindset. There's lots of people who want to double their profits. There's lots of people who want to do lots of things. But the people who take action on those things have one thing in common. They also have discomfort, pain about where they are right now. And if you don't tap into that and the outcome, you will attract dreamers. So think about it like this. If you only talk about the end state, the results that you're going to help people get, you will attract a lot of people who they want what you've got, but they're not serious about getting it, right? So they talk the talk, but when it comes to walking, they don't walk the walk. And if you just talk to the end results, you get lots of people hanging around like that. That's the first group. Now, if you just talk to the pain that they're experiencing, you get a lot of people, just the pain. You will attract a lot of people who want to leave the pain, solve the pain, but actually are probably desperate. Now, in my world, if I do that, I get people who need saving. And I'm not up for working with people who need saving because, one, there's limited options you can do and do well to save somebody if they need a job. They're going to be forced to get a job at the end of the month. So help saving people is not what I want to be doing. But the people in the middle with a healthy level of discomfort, they're not going, oh shit, I'm going to run out of money in 3 days. And they're not going, oh, I'm dreaming about this future, but not really focused on doing anything. When you talk about those two together, it's the sweet spot that actually brings people who are prepared to do the work, prepared to invest, and prepared to take action. And that's where you want to be. But if all you're doing is making it up as you go along on LinkedIn, you're not thinking about these things. You're just posting and going, that posted well, I got 500 impressions. That posted well, I got 1,300 impressions. You're not thinking, how is all of this stuff I'm doing agitating the people with that healthy level of pain and that desire for a goal or an outcome, and kind of agitating them in that space so that they go, Dean, I need to do something about this, right? If you're not doing that, you're just building awareness. I was going to do a post on LinkedIn, and I'm going to wrap up with this in a moment, and hopefully this has been helpful. In fact, I'm going to say something. This is probably the biggest lesson you will get on LinkedIn, because if you get this, everything will change. So anyway, I was going to do a post on LinkedIn, and I used AI to get 3 people, and I decided against it because some people might go, I was fat shaming. But I created an AI image of 3 guys, and one was like really, really, really hugely fat. And another one was slim, and the other one looked like they were starving. And I decided against it because I could see how it would backfire on me. So I decided against posting it. And I got each one of those people to have a t-shirt on with some words on the t-shirt. And on the really, 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 really fat guy, I put top of funnel. On the middle guy, who was kind of okay, I put middle of funnel. And then on the guy who looked like he was starving, I put bottom of funnel. And I'd argue, in one sense, for many business owners, what they're doing on LinkedIn is building that really, really, really big, huge top of funnel. People know them, but they're not building the bits behind it that actually go, well, that person's interested. I'm going to sign up for their email list, or I'm going to go to their event, or I'm going to message them to find out more. And then from that, find out more, you're getting a conversation that's actually converting into a customer. I've got this methodology I call LAPD. It's not the police, but it's called LAPD. And I have this spreadsheet on my computer, and I have the names of people. I have their profiles, their emails, their contacts. And as somebody makes an inquiry with me, I put them on the spreadsheet and they become a lead. And then my job is to go, okay, they've made a bit of interest, whether they've asked me a question or whatever. They've shown some interest in what I do from whatever I'm doing, messaging, posting, events, does not matter. They've made some interest. I put them on that list and I go, right, what's my plan to get that person from a lead to an appointment, to on a call with me, right? Because I understand the journey I've got to take people on if I want customers. So I've got a lead, somebody showing interest. What is my plan to get them on a call? from L to A. So the A, I'm thinking about people don't go on a call just because you've asked them. They go on a call because they feel it might be beneficial to them. So I have to explain to them how, they know I'm going to try and sell them something, but how will it be beneficial for them? So I have to show them I'm not just going to sell them something, or they're not going to feel the pressure to buy from me. I'm going to help them in some way. So that gets them to an appointment. So appointment. I've now moved that person to A. Now from A, right? So I've got the appointment. My next step is to get them to a proposal. In other words, that they want more information about the services to consider it. Okay. So in that call, I have to do that call very, very well, be very focused, think clearly about what I'm going to do in that call. I'm not just showing up randomly and going, oh, I've got a call now. Let's just see what happens. I'm looking at their profile. I'm looking at their business, trying to get an inside track on what they're up to so that when I go on that call, one, I can be helpful, but two, I can help ask the right questions to uncover if they need me or my help in any way. So that then that generates a conversation about my services. May not sometimes. I've had some people on who've just started their business and I'm like, I'm not sure you're ready yet to work with me. So here's some tips to go and get started and get a few customers, make sure you know what you're selling. And then we'll move forward from there. So I've got them a proposal and they've said, Dean, send me kind of a full proposal with costs and everything like that. Great. I've sent that proposal. And I do this whether it's a solopreneur or a big company, do the same process. So I've got that proposal. Now my job is to think about how do I move that proposal into a decision or a deal? What do I need to do? And one of them is follow up. People do not buy just because you've asked them. Yeah. Actually, if you leave a prospect with a proposal and you do not follow it up, it's highly likely it will not convert. So people avoid follow-up because they feel like they're being pushy, and it does feel like you're being pushy, but all the data says if you don't follow up, you don't get deals. So you have to follow up. So I try to be useful in my follow-up. I try to be helpful, but obviously I want to keep people focused on making a decision because the default decision is do nothing. And I run that process, right? So my front end of LinkedIn, my daily activity, whether it be events, lives, connecting, messaging, posting, whatever my plan is, yeah, that is to get me the leads. And then the real work begins. And sadly, the tragedy is people are spending far too much time at the top end trying to get leads unproductively and neglecting their LAPD. In fact, they don't have one, right? Most people don't have that process at all. So I have to spend time at the front to get the leads into my system, and then the real work begins. That's where the skill is. Yeah. We're constantly as a business looking at how do we improve those steps between L to A to P, P to D. Constantly looking at that. How do we do it so that we get the best results so we're not wasting time at the top end? So if you don't have that system, message me and we'll have a conversation like I do with everybody else. Might not go anywhere for me, but you'll get some clarity. If you want to do those paths, that quiz that I mentioned, just drop me a DM and I'll share the link to the quiz. But fundamentally, the tragedy is people don't have that system. They're treating LinkedIn like social media and they're getting very weird results when actually it should be treated like a business channel. Sure, you can chat with people and build relationships on there by all means, but your core activity should be I'm getting leads through doing a very clear process that is repeatable. I can do this over and over and over again and it works. That's what you need. Over and over and over again, it works. And then I get them into the L. I've got the leads. Now the real work begins of going from L to A to P to D. That's how LinkedIn works. So I'm going to wrap up. I've got a busy day ahead. I hope you're having a great week so far. And thanks for joining. And if you've got questions about this, you want to chat with me, just drop me a DM. You just send me the word win and I'll set up a time to talk with you. And nothing else, you get a bit more clarity. But don't be one of those people who are going this endless cycle and achieving very little. That's me done. Over and out. Have a great day.